Hi, my name is Bob Vanderdonk. I'm the product support technical lead for Inventor, and I will be talking to you today about some troubleshooting tips for Inventor 2010. I want to draw your attention to the fact that this is time-sensitive data, so what I'm telling you today might be out of date tomorrow. So we're at the point of releasing a service pack, so I I put this disclaimer in the presentation to just make you aware that this can be easily outdated. I will be talking about a couple of things. First thing is general installation troubleshooting tips, a couple of data exchange tips, FEA simulation, and finally some core Inventor functionality. The first item is about installation. Some of you might have noticed this, but when you do a fresh install of Inventor, you might end up with a crash when moving the mouse over the big eye icon in the left corner of the screen. The crash is due to the fact that we don't have any most recently used files on the pile. So a relatively easy workaround to get out of this crash situation is to change this particular registry key that is shown on the screen and setting it to 0. Another item that might come up with installation is that some components of Inventor are not registered correctly. This is far-reaching and can expose himself in many different forms, like FEA not working. The example that I bring up here on the slide is the help file not working as expected. So we have had reports where users can activate the help file, the CHM file, from outside the Inventor environment, but they cannot invoke the help file from within the Inventor environment, and this on 64-bit versions of our software. We can guess what the causes are, but two good guesses could be that users forget to turn off the UAC as we require in the README file, and they end up with an incomplete Inventor registry file. When you suspect such a situation, you could try the following two tips. First of all, turn off UAC while you can. Use an administrative account so that you don't have any problems with accessing the registry, and the most effective trick that I know to restore the registry is to go to the command line and browse to the bin folder with the cd command, and then run the command inventor /install. The install option will attempt to fully register Inventor. In the case that we've known with the help file, it solved the problem. A third item I want to bring up concerning installation is error dialogues, and more specifically the error dialog with number 1321, insufficient privileges. You might see a dialog like this: Windows installer has insufficient privileges to modify a particular file, a particular DLL or exe. This happens most of the time when you install a service pack of Inventor. The file name can be different, so it does not need to be add-in managed, can be any file that we bring on. The root cause is, so let me roll back a bit here. So it has been reported over the years in different releases of Inventor. So I looked in our database and I could track down calls that go back to release 10 that produce this error. So it has been in our system for a long time. The root cause is not that the user has insufficient rights to install Inventor, but it's all related to a Microsoft problem with encrypted files. And when I drop the name Microsoft, you find here a patch on the Microsoft web page that allows you to fix the problem. This patch is not applicable on Vista SP2, so be careful. You can apply only this patch on Vista SP1. We have an internal solution on our website too. I'm kind of hesitant to point you to the solution because it does not really capture completely the issue, but it's additional reading, so I want to mention it for completeness sake. Another item on installation is for the people that attempt to create deployment images with Microsoft SCCM software. There have been timeout problems reported with that software, so this is for really the initiated. So I just want to mention here that by adding the /w for wait qualifier in the command line, like where I give an example of the command line here, this can improve the situation and can get you out of this wait problem. Let's move over to data exchange and the problems we've seen with the reports that data exchange generate. We've seen on regular occasions that import operations like importing step files start to hang, and this typically happens on machines that cannot insert HTML files into a Microsoft WordPad. So if you go to WordPad and try to insert object and pick an HTML file, that will not work on the machines where our report for the translator is not generated. So this is a test you could do to find out if your machine is relatively okay for translation or not. So, but even then, if you have a machine that is in a bad state concerning WordPad, there is an option that we offer here in this presentation that you might try. So for Inventor 2009, the solution is to turn off the report. And how can you turn off the report? Well, by creating a system variable with the name trans_report_option. In Inventor 2009, that variable has to have a value of 1, can have any value as long as it's not empty. In 2010, the variable needs to have a value of 2 to disable the report generation. Another tip and trick that I want to give you is in the area of FEA. There is possibility to create a debug report when you want to examine certain problems with FEA's calculation. In order to do that, you simply go into the registry and create a reg key with the following name. So it has to be debug info, and you have to put it in a particular registry hive that I'm also showing here on the screen. The debug info has to be of the type dword, and the value has to be 1. The result of doing this is that you get a log file created in your temp folder, and the log file is of the name fea compute_server.log, and it will give you extra information on the things that happened during the FEA calculation. Another tip for people that are interested in FEA is when you want to do simulation on multiple parts in the same session. So typical workflow here is you have an original part that you see at the bottom of your screen here, and you want to copy the part, do a small modification on the copy, and then do a calculation on the copy and compare both results side by side in the same session. Well, if you attempt to do this in 2010, you get the phenomenon as shown here, where the calculation at the bottom is correct. The calculation on the copy continues to show you the situation from the original. So you get the Z displacements here exactly identical to the Z displacement of the original part. So that you don't have the correct results. So how can you avoid this with 2010? Well, the answer is relatively simple. Well, let me first give you the explanation on why this happens. So when you copy a file, the internal name property in that file is kept identical. So we are not changing the internal name property. The second thing you need to know is that FEA in 2010 uses that internal name to identify the file that it wants to associate the calculations to. So it's not surprising that Inventor mixes up at that point. And I definitely mentioned RTM, the first release version, because we fixed this in SP1. So there is a very easy solution to the problem by installing SP1. If you don't have SP1 installed yet, there is another solution, and that consists of just opening a second Inventor session and doing the calculation there. So I've talked enough over the slide here. I do want to present you this in a live demo, which drives the points home better, I think. So let's go to the demo. We will look at an example of finite element analysis. We have a part 1 up here where I have a Z displacement which looks like this. At this point I want to examine a slight change in my design, so I do a save copy as of the file to something that I call copy FEA lib, and I want of course to look at the copy simultaneously with the original part in the same Inventor session. So I open both parts side by side in the Inventor session. So the copied part at the top and the original part at the bottom. So if I now make a slight modification to the copied part, in this case I change the size of the lib. I want to do a finite element analysis on the change, so bear with me here for a second. I went prematurely into the stress module, so I first need to make my change. So I go from a lib length of 6 millimeter to a lib length which is slightly larger. So I go for a distance of 18 millimeters. So we clearly see a big change between the two lib sizes in the two files. Is just for educational purposes here basically. So I then do my calculation, and lo and behold, I'm not getting the expected result. So I continue to see basically the results of my first analysis in the original part. That's the problem we're trying to solve here in this demo. So the way to solve this is either by installing Service Pack 1 of 2010. We fixed this problem in that service pack, but if you don't have the service pack installed and you do want to have side-by-side comparison on your machine, you can perfectly open a second Inventor session that you see on the right of my screen here, and you just open a copy in the second session and then perform your stress analysis in the second session. That should give you a carefree treatment of the copied part without worrying of getting a mix-up in results. So I make the lip longer here, and I start the stress analysis with the exact same parameters. And it gives me what I was expecting, different results, so I can start comparing values. That's what I was really after in this case. Here is another tip about DWIF preview images. It has been reported that the DWIF bitmaps don't show up in Explorer on 64-bit machines. So you get a situation like is shown on the bottom here, where you have a bracket.dwf and a very generic bitmap icon. The explanation is that we use a 32-bit version of our Windows shell extension to treat those images. So 32-bit and 64-bit clearly do not work together here. So the solution to get around the problem is to use a 32-bit version of Windows Explorer instead of a 64-bit version of the Explorer, which is the default on a 64-bit machine. You can do this quite easily by typing in the %system root %syswow64/explorer.exe /separate command. Especially the separate qualifier is important here. And once you could do this, of course, through the run command, but another way of doing it is by pasting this command in an existing Windows Explorer window. I'll demo that later on. And at the end of this operation, it will give you a nice preview image. So I will give you a very quick demo of the whole workflow. Here is a case that I want to show you on the DWIF preview in Explorer. So I show you here that I have a 64-bit machine, so no secrets here. You see that the DWIF preview bitmap doesn't show up. The part file itself has a correct bitmap in Explorer. So I now type in my magic command in the Explorer window. This opens a second Explorer window, which is a 32-bit version of the Explorer. And then I just browse to the exact same folder, and you see that the DWIF images now come through. Unfortunately, I lose the IPT preview, so it's one or the other depending on what exactly you want to see, unfortunately. Here is a tip for people amongst us that do a lot of DWG import, or people that work in large sketches with scattered details and sketch geometry that is very far apart. I'm showing here an example of where I have a sketch at the bottom, the left lower corner. I have a circular pattern, and on the top right corner of my sketch I have a rectangular pattern. So how can I zoom in comfortably in that lower left corner when I plan to work in that area for a longer period of time? I don't want to rely on the zoom all and then do a zoom window, etc. So I want to have something faster. A possible solution is to put the sketch and the part that contains the sketch inside an assembly and use the assembly viewrep mechanism to store zoom factors. But that's a very convoluted workaround. I think a much better solution is to redefine the area that you're interested in by using the home view command in the view cube. So the process is simple. You just zoom in with a zoom window. You have to do it once. Then you right click on the view cube and you use the set current view as home command. And then probably you want to have a fixed distance so that you have an exact copy of an exact area that you want. And then once you have set it, once you can click on the home icon on the view cube to return to this particular area. There will be I will give a very small demo here to clarify the workflow. In this third video in the podcast, I'll explain you how to zoom in on particular small details in a sketch. This problem might occur if you have different sketch elements that are scattered around in different corners of your screen, and you want to work in a particular area for a longer amount of time. How do you zoom in fast enough in that particular small area? So I now zoom in the area of interest, and I set on my view cube this as my home view with a fixed distance. This guarantees me that if once I hit the home button, that I will go back quickly to this particular zoom. And I do my work at this point, and I can spend many more hours here. And then I decide, okay, I do want to work in a different area of my sketch, where I could do the exact same thing at the other corner of my sketch, define a home view, set my zoom to this particular detail, and then do my work in that corner of the sketch. So it's much more easy navigation by using the home view on the view cube. I think this is a quite neat trick that you want to keep in your bag. And finally, here is my top list of what I would call popular technical solutions that I've seen passed by in the last couple of weeks. So I do want to point these out. I think many of these should be familiar to you, but just in case. The first thing I want to point out is the fact that Microsoft updates. When Microsoft brings on a new KB on your machine, it might affect Inventor. So if you have crashes in Inventor after Microsoft updates a KB, please think about running Excel or any product from the Microsoft Office suite prior to running Inventor. That might cure Inventor's crash. We have documented this in TS 1108027. We have seen in the past couple of months several crash reports due to the 3D connections mouse in combination with the ribbon UI. We have blogged about this, we have mentioned this on the news group, so I think a lot of people know about this. We had a lot of downloads of this patch, so the patch there is TS 136.47537. Another hotfix we made was for a problem when you open drawings from a previous release and you all of a sudden got no more memory is available as an error. This was caused by projected sketch geometry being present in your drawing views. The hotfix fixes this. Then another error that we've seen in the past couple of months with 2010 is the create GPO MSI error. This was an error introduced by the images that we use during installation. So we call those infotainment images, and they try to keep people entertained while they install our product. Well, actually they were doing more than that. They were consuming memory like hell, so to the point where we run out of memory. So we fixed this with another hotfix 134.23039. And finally, another one that especially affected beta testers. So if you previously have installed the Inventor 2010 beta, doesn't matter beta 1, 2 or 3, you will have problems installing the release version of Inventor. So I point you here to a blog post on our blog where we explain you what to do to get really rid of the beta. And the last thing I want to mention here is the FlexNet, the FNP licensing service 64 error, for which we made another hotfix. So I think this is a good set of known problems where we have very good solutions right now. So you should be all very familiar with these to avoid these in the future. Thank you.